The bad news for NFL teams that made obvious mistakes in the early stages of the 2020 season, there's no going back now. The good news, hey, they still have the 2020 NFL Draft to look forward to. Every NFL fan base has at least one move, or lack thereof, to second guess this offseason. But these 10 teams made some downright terrible moves that can only be repaired at the draft. So, let's dive into it. Number 10. Washington Redskins address the leaky secondary. Just on their own, new head coach Ron Rivera and defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio will make the Redskins defense that much better. But this unit could quickly morph into a top 5 or 10 unit if they can make the most of these draft picks. The Redskins pulled off a head-scratching move when they traded away vastly underrated corner Quinton Dunbar for merely a 5th-round draft choice. That left a gaping hole in the secondary. The Redskins made the right choice in releasing Josh Norman. He and Dunbar are simply a much better comeback duo than Kendall Fuller and Ronald Darby, whom the Redskins added in free agency. Fuller and Darby aren't the type of guys that will solidify Washington's secondary, so they have to find more cornerback and safety help here in the draft. Barring any huge surprises, Washington will take franchise-changing pass rusher Chase Young at number 2 overall, but they should target corners with their other picks. Don't forget their 2nd rounder belongs to the Indianapolis Colts. Or maybe Washington can find a way to secure another 2nd or 3rd round pick in the draft. Lavert Hill, Reggie Robinson, and Bryce Hall are among the notable corners that should be available for the Redskins after the first 2 rounds. Either way, Washington has to find somebody to replace the voids left by Norman and Dunbar. Darby and Fuller aren't bad, but they're still a downgrade. How does Washington expect to improve in 2020 if their secondary somehow got even worse? Number 9. New York Jets find a receiver who can stretch the field. Though the Jets salvaged a respectable 7-9 record, the offense simply didn't take flight as much as we expected. Pun intended. Supposed offense guru Adam Gase was supposed to help Sam Darnold enjoy a sophomore breakout year. That didn't happen. Pro Bowl running back Le'Veon Bell was largely unproductive, making the Pittsburgh Steelers look like geniuses for not giving in to his contract demands. Well, the Jets didn't do much in free agency to fix their frustrating offense. Darnold's favorite receiver, Robbie Anderson, signed with the Carolina Panthers. The Jets didn't add any playmakers in the passing game. So as it stands, this offense is even worse. Anderson posted over 700 receiving yards in 3 straight seasons. In 4 years with the Jets, he averaged 14.8 yards per reception. New York needs to replace that production at the draft. Plain and simple. Luckily for general manager Joe Douglas, 2020 is one of the deepest wide receiver draft classes in recent memory. New York holds the 11th pick in the draft. If they prioritize receiver here, the Jets should easily get one of Henry Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, or Jerry Jeudy. All 3 would be complete game changers for that Jet offense, allowing Jamison Crowder to continue working as the number 2 pass catcher. Darnold can't improve unless the Jets give him more weapons. They let their top receiver leave in free agency, which was quite a mistake. Douglas has the chance to fix that by supplying Darnold with an elite receiving prospect. Number 8. Atlanta Falcons. Take a lockdown corner. Once again, the Falcons boasted one of the league's worst defenses in 2019. They ranked 23rd in scoring defense, and yet GM Thomas Dimitrov decided to cut ties with some of his better playmakers. They let pass rusher Vic Beasley and linebacker Devondre Campbell walk in free agency. They cut top cornerback Desmond Trufant without finding a suitable replacement for him. How was Atlanta's defense supposed to take a step forward without Trufant, their lone reliable cornerback? He had a respectable 70.3 grade from the Pro Football Focus in 2019. And you need a guy like that when Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Teddy Bridgewater reside in your division. Releasing Trufant was a mistake. Failing to find a good replacement was even more confusing. So the Falcons really have to do something about it at the draft. Unless Dimitrov can put together a mega trade package to move into the top 5, Atlanta won't be getting their hands on Jeffrey Okudah, the top cornerback prospect in the draft. When it's time to pick at 16, the Falcons should have plenty of good options there. CJ Henderson of Florida and AJ Terrell of Clemson both make sense. Otherwise, the Falcons could wait until round 2 and target someone like Trayvon Diggs or Damon Arnett. One way or another, the Falcons have to take a corner within the first 2 rounds. But seeing how they're loaded on offense, we highly recommend they focus on defense and try to come away with at least 3 defensive backs. That'd be one way of fixing their offseason mistake of releasing Trufant. Number 7. Jacksonville Jaguars. Time to rebuild the front 7. We won't fault the Jacksonville Jaguars for performing a scorched earth rebuild, unloading the expensive contracts of Nick Foles and AJ Boye while releasing Marcel Darius for savvy moves. But trading well-respected veteran and Pro Bowl pass rusher Calais Campbell to the Baltimore Ravens for nothing more than a 5th-round pick? Now that's a mistake. They were better off keeping him during a rebuilding process, and the Jaguars could have looked to get better value at the 2020 trade deadline. After giving Campbell away to the Ravens, the Jaguars better be thinking about the front seven here at the draft. They don't need to worry about pass catchers or running backs right now. It's the defense that needs the most work. Jaguars GM David Caldwell owns the number 9 and number 20 selections, the latter coming from the Los Angeles Rams via the Jalen Ramsey trade. He has all the draft capital he needs to beef up the front seven. They're not getting Chase Young, but Caldwell won't have a shortage of options when it's his turn to pick. South Carolina defensive lineman Javon Kinlaw, Clemson linebacker Isaiah Simmons, Auburn defensive tackle Derek Brown, and LSU pass rusher Kayvon Chaisson would all fit beautifully in Duval County. Yes, Caldwell did draft Josh Allen to round out his front seven last year, but it is not a bad idea to use 2 early round selections on the defensive line here. The Jaguars reached the 2017 AFC Championship game on the strength of the Saxonville defense. So after trading Campbell, why not use these picks to quickly reconstruct Saxonville 2.0? Number 6. New England Patriots, get your quarterback of the future. Only time will tell if letting Tom Brady walk was a mistake on the New England Patriots end. Right now, it certainly looks like it. You don't replace GOAT-level play from a 6-time Super Bowl champion and 3-time league MVP after all. Bill Belichick has successfully replaced a ton of franchise stars throughout the years, but for the first time in almost 2 decades, he has to replace his quarterback. We'd love to give Belichick and Jarrett Stidham the benefit of the doubt, but given the depth in this year's quarterback class, we feel like he simply has to take a quarterback. At least open up the competition between Stidham and a rookie. If he wanted to, Belichick could very well find a way into the top 10 and come away with Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa. That seems unlikely, but the next tier of quarterbacks is still pretty darn good. Jake Fromm, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, and Jacob Eason should all flourish under Belichick and Josh McDaniels. And at least 2 of those guys should be available when it's New England's turn to pick in round 1. Belichick seems to be preparing for a rebuild here in Foxborough. If he's not fully confident in Stidham, why not make up for the Tom Brady departure by taking a polished signal caller at the draft? Number 5. Minnesota Vikings. Calling all corners and defensive linemen. The cap-strapped Vikings gave Kirk Cousins a contract extension at the expense of losing 4 key contributors on defense. They moved on from starting corners Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes. Pass rushing star Everson Griffin was released over cap constraints. Veteran defensive tackle Linval Joseph was also cut loose. Losing 4 starters on defense when you're in the midst of playoff contention, GM Rick Spielman better have some plans up his sleeve. The Vikings have rebuilt their offense line nicely. Kudos to Spielman and Gary Kubiak on that front. With Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and Kyle Rudolph leaving the offense, Minnie doesn't need to worry about that side of the ball in the first round. Minnie holds the number 22 and 25 picks in the draft, the first coming from the Buffalo Bills in the Stephon Diggs trade. Plenty of capital for Mr. Spielman to address his defense. The Vikings have to go defense with these 2 first-round picks, and we recommend they use at least 3 of their top 5 selections on defensive players. They don't need to worry about safety or linebacker, but the Vikings need at least 2 corners and 1 edge rusher in this year's draft. You can't lose 4 starters without replacing at least 2 of them. So use these picks wisely, Mr. Spielman. Number 4. Los Angeles Chargers. Take Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert. The Chargers made the right decision to move on from Phillip Rivers, but they shouldn't convince themselves that Tyrod Taylor is the long-term answer. Not a chance. This roster is built to win now, so there's no time to lose. After losing out on Tom Brady and avoiding Teddy Bridgewater, who would have been the perfect fit in LA, the Chargers better have 2 names in mind when they pick at 6, Tua or Herbert, whichever one of them is available. Joe Burrow will go first overall. Barring any major trades inside the top 4, the Miami Dolphins will take Tua or Herbert. But wait! Who says the Chargers can't trade up and select before Miami? Taylor is a fine short-term answer for now, but the Chargers shouldn't waste the primes of Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, Mike Williams, Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, and Derwin James. Get Tua or Herbert ASAP, or else we're going to have to give the Chargers a bad drafting grade. It's a simple task. Let's hope for the sake of the Chargers fans that the front office doesn't blow it. Number 3. Detroit Lions. Draft Jeffrey Okudah. The Lions have pledged loyalty to Matthew Stafford, which means they won't be taking a quarterback here at number 3. But whether they trade this pick or not, the Lions should make sure they come away with world-class corner and future franchise changer Jeffrey Okudah. That would make up for the decision to trade away fan favorite and Pro Bowl quarterback Darius Big Play Slay, whom head coach Matt Patricia ran out of town. Slay was one of the few positives on the Lions defense, but they were content in sending him to the Philadelphia Eagles for 3rd and 5th round picks. Okudah is one of the best cornerback prospects we've seen in years. As awful as the Lions defense was, Okudah is capable of completely changing it on his own. This is Detroit's only way to make up for the questionable Slay trade. Get Okudah so you can rebuild the defense around him. Seriously, even non-Lions fans will cringe if they botch this pick. It's Okudah or bust, Lions. Do your job. Number 2. Green Bay Packers. Hurry up and get a number 2 receiver. The Packers won 13 games and reached the NFC Championship game in their first year under head coach Matt LaFleur. That was thanks to the defense and rushing game, however, and not so much Aaron Rodgers in the passing game. Green Bay's passing offense isn't so lethal anymore, because Davante Adams is Rodgers' only reliable pass-catching option. The Packers wisely released former Pro Bowl tight end Jimmy Graham, but failed to secure a legitimate number 2 pass catcher like Robbie Anderson or Emmanuel Sanders in free agency. Signing Devin Funchess isn't the move to help this passing game reach another level. The Green Bay front office messed up by not getting Rodgers a reliable second option to take some of the pressure off of Adams. With the 30th pick in this year's draft, Green Bay has to find a receiver. Zero excuses, trade up if you have to. Either way, Rodgers isn't getting any younger. He and Adams can't carry the passing game alone. Just look at how easy it was for the San Francisco 49ers to neutralize Green Bay in the NFC title game. Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, and Brandon Ayuk are among the possible options at number 30 overall. One way or another, Green Bay has to find another weapon for their passing game. Otherwise, their stale offense will hold them back from making another championship run.
Number 1. Houston Texans address their horrible secondary. Until recently, we probably could have used this time to talk about the Texans' need for a number 1 wide receiver after they traded away all-pro wideout DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals for practically nothing. But they were able to somewhat fill that hole by acquiring Brandon Cooks from the Rams. So that just leaves their horrible secondary. Houston was believed to be one of the frontrunners for Pro Bowl corner Chris Harris Jr.'s services, but they lost out on him to the Los Angeles Chargers. Bill O'Brien and company also whiffed on guys like Byron Jones, James Bradbury, and Kendall Fuller. Simply put, they did nothing to improve their 29th ranked pass defense. It was a big reason why they blew a 24-0 lead to the Chiefs in the AFC divisional round. As confused as O'Brien may seem at times, you'd have to think he realizes this and intends to address the team's secondary needs at the draft. The Texans don't have a first rounder, but there are a number of intriguing secondary prospects in this year's draft. So don't be surprised if one of them falls into Houston's lap. Someone like Utah's Jalen Johnson, Alabama's Trayvon Diggs, or LSU's Grant Delpit would go a long way towards helping out that secondary. Just don't screw this up like everything else you've done this offseason, Billy boy.
What other offseason mistakes do teams need to correct in the 2020 NFL Draft? Join us in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps us out a ton and we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.